Okie dokie. In this video, I'll go through 3 examples of this problem. Let's get into it. They ask us to find the domain of this function, the square root function. To find the domain is to find all the x values that work. In other words, like when you plug these x values into this function, you get a defined function value, which means that there are some x values for which when you plug them into this function, if you say plug them into this function in a calculator, the calculator would give you an error. And so you want to think about like what could possibly give you an error if you plugged in certain values into this function here. Well, when we think about a square root, what kinds of values can we not have underneath a square root? In other words, what would give us an error? Well, if we think about negative numbers, say square root of -9, it would almost be 3, but the negative would lead us to an error, right? We can't have a square root of a negative number. Same with, say -4. It would almost be 2, but the negative would be an issue. It would lead us to an error. How about if we had 0? Would that be an error? No, square root of 0 is just 0, so 0 is totally fine. So what we need is for the inside stuff, the inside expression underneath the radical there, to be either greater than 0 or equal to 0. It cannot be less than 0 because the inside stuff cannot be negative, right? So we're trying to find the x values for which this -2x minus 10 is greater than or equal to 0. So we set it greater than or equal to 0, and we solve for x. So we're going to solve for x by adding 10 to both sides first, giving us this. And then we solve for x by dividing by -2 on both sides, getting rid of that -2, and keeping in mind when we divide or multiply by a negative, this sign, the inequality sign, flips. So it goes from greater than or equal to less than or equal to. So 10 divided by -2 is -5. And so these are the x values that satisfy -2x minus 10 being greater than or equal to 0, which means that this is your domain. So D is our answer. Let's go ahead and do 2 more examples. So again, to simplify it, so I don't have to go through the whole explanation at the start here, we are just setting the inside expression greater than or equal to 0 every time, for any time you see a square root function like this. And then we're solving for x. So we subtract 4 on both sides, and then we divide by 10. So dividing by 10 does not flip the sign this time because we did not divide by a negative, but we maybe have to simplify this fraction. So let's simplify this. Dividing each numerator and denominator by 2 would give us -2/5. So x is greater than or equal to -2/5. This is our domain. This is the set of x values that makes this expression, 10x plus 4, greater than or equal to 0, which means that these are the x values that would produce proper function values, defined function values for this function. All right, so -2/5 greater than or equal to -2/5 looks like option D, and that's it. Let's do one more. Again, just set the inside expression greater than or equal to 0 and solve for x. So we add the 7 and then divide by 5. So x is greater than or equal to 7/5. That's option A, and we're done. Hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, please let me know.